Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. Yesterday we discussed transformation, generative grammar, deep structure and substructure of sentences and phrases, etc. So today the subject of my lecture is phrase structure rules. As we have seen, phrases have definite structure. For example, an NP, that is noun phrase, consists of at least a noun. It can have a determiner, an adjectival phrase, and so on. Similarly, a sentence also has a structure. If we can find a formula or a formal way of writing how these structures are made or generated, we can write down the phrase structure rules or PS rules of a language. Let us therefore write down the phrase structure rules of English. As we also discussed the phrase structure in our previous lecture, the phrase structure of a noun phrase and also the verb phrase and preposition phrase, etc. So let's check the other phrase structures here. What is a sentence tense? Sentence we know that is noun phrase plus verb phrase. And what is noun phrase? It can also be it can also be a simple noun or a pronoun, etc. Or it can also contain these things that is article and adjective as well, or determiner as well. And what is verb phrase? So these are the things which are included under the heading of or under the M of verb phrase, and what is PP and preposition phrase. This is a mixture or a combination of preposition plus noun phrase. Noun, these are nouns, right? And and these are also nouns. Proper nouns you can say. Determiners, here you can find them, right? These are adjective, etc. Verb, preposition and verb, etc. And here in the above list, you can say that where it is uh, where the sign plus is mentioned, like this one. So it shows that and are followed by, this is omitted by some people. So plus denotes and are followed by, right? So it does mean it has some more terms in the list, wherever plus is mentioned and wherever this medium bracket is given, or curly brackets are given. So these curly brackets contain elements out of which only one should be selected. So like here, if you have this one, right, and if you want to make an verb phrase, you will have to at least use one of these, right? And if you want to make a write a prepositional phrase, you will have to use at least one of these, right? Same is the case with other phrases above. And where the bracket, small bracket is given, these so these brackets contain constituents which may be omitted, right? So does mean this bracket kind of gives you a choice. Here it is given example here. This bracket shows that prepositional phrase can or cannot come under this verb phrase, right? It gives you an option, and here as well. It is adjective, so you can also use adjective, and you can all and you also have a chance not to use adjective in noun phrase. Let's move towards the next detail. Now let us generate the sentence. Some first sentence is Samir ran. Samir ran, and as it is a sentence, it contains a noun phrase followed by a verb phrase. Right here, it is noun phrase. As we have already discussed, that noun can only be a single word, or proper noun, or common noun, etc. So here, verb phrase. Same is the case with the verb phrase. Verb phrase can also be a single word, or it can be a mixture of different words. Let us make a label tree diagram of it, which we also discuss in detail in our pedagogical grammar course, right? And during this course, during the classes on the campus for this course as well. Tree diagrams. It must be you must be very much familiar with this topic. That's a tree diagram. A tree diagram is only a convenient way of showing how the different constituents are arranged in a sentence, right? It's a kind of you conveniently show that how the different words and terms or constituents are arranged in a sentence. It tells us which categorical constituents dominates, right? And it also tells us about the domination, right, or the rule of a single constituent in the sentence as well, that which constituent rule in the sentence, and which and gives us a pictorial model of a sentence. So the third thing about this tree diagram is that it gives us a pictorial model of a sentence that we see or we convert or transform a sentence uh, from a linear or a verbal or theoretical, so from a linear or theoretical position to a kind of diagrammatical or a pictorial model. For example, here subject is noun phrase plus verb phrase implies the subject. Noun phrase is noun, that is Samir in this sentence, and in this sentence verb phrase is only rain. Sorry, yes, verb phrase only rain here. And let's start tree diagram. Subject, first of all, you can also call it a sentence node, right? This is overall a sentence. You can simply call it a sentence node here, and it has two branches here. First one is noun phrase, and the second one is verb phrase, right? And under the heading of noun phrase or a noun NP node, we have only single noun, right? That is proper noun. You can choose PN as well. And under the heading of that N node, that is proper noun node, you only have one word, that is sunny. The next verb phrase or the verb phrase node, you only have one verb, you mentioned it here. Then under the verb node, you have only one verb, that is ran. Here that S node dominates all the other nodes, like this dominates all the other node, that is verb phrase and noun phrase system. It dominates the noun phrase and verb phrase. It is just another way of saying that the sentence is the largest syntactic category which contains a noun phrase and a verb phrase. So you can, in a way, say that sentence is a larger sentence. You can define sentence in this way as well. The sentence is the largest syntactic category which contains a noun phrase and a verb phrase, right? Of course, sentence will be sentence when it has these things, right? It has subject and so it is sentence when it has the kind of noun phrase, right, and a verb phrase. Similarly, the noun phrase node and the verb phrase node dominate all the other things which came under them. Consider the T diagram for the following sentences. So we can also say that these two phrases, that is noun phrase and verb phrase, also dominate the other parts, all the other constituents in a sentence. Let's see the T diagram for these two sentences. E.T. Ran very fast. E.T. ran with a lady. So here we have the first diagram. First of all, we have S node at a sentence node, and under the heading of sentence node, we have two branches. First is NP, and the second is VP, so noun phrase and verb phrase. And under the heading of noun phrase, you have a noun phrase node. You have only one noun, and under the heading of noun node, you have one word, that is kitty. Whereas on the heading of VP, we have two branches, but the two branches it can be divided into two branches. First is simple verb, and the second is adverb phrase, right? And under the heading of adverb phrase or verb phrase, under the heading of verb or verb node, you have only one word, that is ran, and whereas on the heading of adverb phrase, you have two branches here. First one is intensifier, uh, various intensifier here, and then again you have a verb here, that is fast. So it does mean GT ran very fast has this diagram, right? In which GT is noun, ran is verb, various intensifier which intensifies this verb, and fast is verb. And you can uh, you can you can read the details from this paragraph here. And let's move towards the next sentence. Here in the next sentence, S dominates all the nodes, S that is sentence, and then it is divided into two branches here, main branches NP and BP, and the NP node dominates this N node, and N node dominates the single word, that is PT. In the next branch, the VP node dominates further two branches, that is first is V, that is verb, and under the ending of verb you only have line. Whereas in the next PP node, that is prepositional phrase, you have first one, firstly you have P, that is preposition, and then you have NP, right? And here NP is embedded into PP, that is preposition phrase. So PP has this noun phrase as well, and noun phrase or noun phrase node, you can say NP node is further divided into two branches. First is determiner, you can say the, and the second is noun, that is lady. So this tree diagram is one of the ways of showing syntactic structure in the sentences, but we also have some other ways of showing syntactic structures. We some drawing the tree diagram or making a tree diagram or showing the syntactic structure of the sentence through tree diagram is easier than the other structure, although it covers more space, right? And still it is easier. And the second way is, let's see the second way of showing the syntactic structure. And here you use brackets in this way, and below brackets you write down the name of the category, right? And this process is called labeling. So let's see the process. Here we have the sentence Sheila ran. You put Sheila inside this bracket and you named it noun because this is noun. Whereas you put enclose this word ran with this bracket and you wrote down V, does mean NV. So if we had if, if we have to draw a tree diagram, so it would cover more space, but it would be easier like this, and it is okay. This labeling process also okay, but for very simple kernel sentences. But if when sentences uh, changes into when sentences changes into contain some complexity, right, and number of subject and objects, then it becomes very difficult to label each and everything with the help of bracket. It becomes more confusing. Let's look at here. Second step of the labeling method. In the first step, you just put N and V, and in the second step, you put N inside bigger brackets labeled NV and V inside a bracket labeled VP. So here you use bigger bracket than the previous bracket. Previously, you just wrote N, whereas now in this bracket you wrote NP as well. So, and same is the case here, V and VP. So here we came to know that when a reader will read, first of all, the reader will just look at this, right? The bigger bracket, see that this is NP or noun phrase that is enclosed within this bracket, and then you will further see of this bracket, and you will see the label of this bracket that is noun, and inside this noun, if you have Sheila, that is a noun, that is a word, right? Proper noun. Same as the case with this part as well. And third step is put both the NP and the VP inside a larger bracket labeled as. So you are once again putting in another line, putting another larger bracket, and you are naming it as S, right? That is a sentence. S stands for sentence here, and here as well. So you just label this bracket as S. So S shows that this bracket has this bracket has this bracket encloses a sentence, right? This bigger one. Then further NP shows that this bracket encloses that contains a noun phrase here. Then this bracket shows that and this bracket along with this title, that is M, shows that it encloses that it has a noun. Same is the case with this passage as well. So this was the third uh, process here. As you can see that this method uses many brackets and can be very confusing. It is however useful if you want to save space. Uh, the tree diagram is generally simpler to use, but it takes more time. So it is suggested, I recommend you using tree diagram instead of this method. But if you have limited space, limited pages, right, so you can use this method as well. And if you are comfortable with this method, you go for it. Go for this one as well. But if you're not comfortable, you should go for the tree diagrams. So those are more interesting as well. We have learned so far that there are phrase structure rules which determine the structure of phrases, that is the head of a noun phrase is noun, and the head of verb phrase is verb, right? Head of AP, adverbial phrase, adverb phrase is adverb. Suppose we want to reduce the number of phrases structure roots. How can we do this? Obviously, we will have to integrate all the roots under one rule, right? So here we are going to integrate kind of combine all the rules under one main rule, like we did, we use NP for noun, like we can say that A dominates AP, N dominates NP, same as it is with the phrases. So here we want to design or engineer a rule, or you can say that manufacture a rule which integrates all of the rules, right? But why should we want to do this? Because it is scientific to have as few rules as possible, the minimalist approach. So the minimalist approach tells us, minimal approach recommends using a few rules as few as possible, right? So because uh, we are kind of going for scientific rules, right? So scientific rules, our science wants to design as few rules as possible, and and under those rules, science want to cover so many things, right? So many other rules. So we are going for a minimalist approach as well. Let us start with VP. So the topic is going to be kind of more mathematical, more demanding here, and more interesting as well. Just pay some more cognizance. Let us start with VPs, yani verb phrase. We know that VPs have verb and other items, NP, PP, etc. So VP has V and other items, that is noun phrase and preposition phrase under it. The maximal projection is VP. So in the verb phrase, the maximal projection is VP. This is a very important point. The maximal projection in VP is VP, right? But under it, there are projections of V labeled as V bar, written as V bar or V, that is comma, it shows V bar. ये जा रहा है कि you have VP, that is verb phrase, तो इसकी मैक्सिमल प्रोजेक्शन तो VP होगी ना verb phrase में, तो मेन प्रोजेक्शन इसकी VP होगी, लेकिन इस मेन प्रोजेक्शन VP के अंदर, यानी इस नोड VP के अंदर आपके पास V भी हो सकता है, यानी वर्ब भी हो सकता है, वी जिसको आप लेबल करेंगे वी बार से लिख सकते हैं, पढ़ सकते हैं, और लिखेंगे ऐसे जो मैथमेटिकली वी बार या वी कॉमा के साथ लिख सकते हैं. आइए देखते हैं व्हाट डज इट मीन हियर. तो हियर इज द सेंटेंस, आई विल रन डाउन द गार्डन, राइट? आई विल रन डाउन द गार्डन. तो रन डाउन द गार्डन इज अ वर्ब फ्रेज, राइट? अब दूसरे सेंटेंस में देखें, इसमें क्या है, आई एम श्योर यू विल डू सो. तो ये जो डू सो है, इट इज अ काइंड ऑफ सब्स्टिट्यूट फॉर दिस वन, राइट? इसके लिए यूज हुआ हुआ. इन द फर्स्ट सेंटेंस यू सेड आई विल रन डाउन द गार्डन, पूरा एक सेंटेंस है, दूसरे में डू सो इस सारे को रिप्लेस कर रहा है. आई विल, मतलब इस डू सो का मतलब ये है कि आई विल रन डाउन द गार्डन. कैसे? नाउ डू सो सब्स्टिट्यूट रन डाउन द गार्डन, दिस कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट फ्रेज इज आल्सो अ स्मॉल वर्ब फ्रेज. तो आप इसे भी फिर कह सकते हैं, ये जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट फ्रेज है, दिस इज अ स्मॉल वर्ब फ्रेज, क्योंकि ये इस बड़ी वर्ब फ्रेज के लिए एक सब्स्टिट्यूट है इन द नेक्स्ट सेंटेंस. बट बीइंग अंडर अ बिग वर्ब फ्रेज, तो आप फिर इस वर्ब इसको वर्ब फ्रेज तो कह सकते हैं, लेकिन बट बीइंग अंडर अ बिग वर्ब फ्रेज, इट इज अ वर्ब वी बार और वी बार, राइट? तो आप इसको फिर पढ़ेंगे ऐसे, आप इसे कहेंगे कि ये, क्योंकि बिकॉज इट इज अंडर अ बिग वर्ब फ्रेज, राइट? एक बड़ी वर्ब फ्रेज के अंडर है ये वाली यूज हो, तो इसको आप फिर कहेंगे कि दिस इज वी बार और वी कॉमा के साथ लिखेंगे, दैट मीन दैट योर वी बार. So next, before V bar there may be a specified. तो अब चलिए, ये तो एक बात होगी कि this V bar is under a bigger verb phrase, ये वाली इसके अंडर है. लेकिन जो है यानी V bar जो है ये वाली, it can also it can also follow specifier. इससे पहले specifier भी हो सकता है. For example, we have all run down the garden, right? हम कहते हैं कि हमारे पास एक सेंटेंस है, we have all learned on the guide. So in this sentence, all is quantifier, right? It quantifies the persons, ठीक है? And whereas in the previous sentence we only said I will run down the garden. Here we said we have all run down the garden. So all is used as a specifier or a quantifier. It occupies the specifier position to specify the position here all one. So you can say that specifier and next is verb phrase. So this all is specifier and you wrote like this, specifier comma verb phrase. So this is the structure you use, mathematical structure you use for this thing, that is specified and verb phrase. It combines with V bar to form a V projection. Does mean verb projection, verb phrase projection. तो ये जो है ये जुड़ता है, ये प्रोसेस इसके साथ किसके साथ जुड़ता है जी, V के साथ, V बार के साथ। V बार ऊपर हमने बोला था कि एक छोटी फ्रेज होती है अंडर अ बिगर फ्रेज टू फॉर्म अ वी प्रोजेक्शन। ये जब जुड़ेगा वी बार के साथ यानी छोटी फ्रेज के साथ तो क्या बनाएगा, इट विल फॉर्म अ वी डबल कॉमा के साथ प्रोजेक्शन। दैट मीन इट इज अ वर्ब फ्रेज। द वी, दिस वी इज द सेम एज वर्ब फ्रेज, जाके हमें बता भी रहे हैं। इन शॉर्ट हम कैसे कह सकते हैं कि वर्ब फ्रेज से क्या चीज़ होगी। इन शॉर्ट द स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ वी बार डबल वी डबल apostrophe आपके पास है is as follows. तो V double apostrophe is verb phrase, right? आप जब भी ऐसे देखें तो आप कहेंगे ये verb phrase है। तो V double apostrophe is tantamount to specifier and along with specifier you have V bar. And V bar is V बार ऊपर हमने जो देखी थी कि ये एक स्मॉल फ्रेज है, राइट, अंडर द हेडिंग ऑफ under which comes under a big. So overall we have verb phrase in this form, and verb phrase or V double apostrophe is kind of it has these things, right? This is the maximal projection, and under this we have specifier and V bar as well. V bar is as we already know that it is a VP bar, V bar, which comes under a big phrase or under verb phrase, right? And here we have the formula of V bar. And V bar is V, that is verb, and along with that we have other constituent elements. And v, what is V double apostrophe? V double apostrophe here is the maximal projection of V, right here. It is the maximal projection of V, that is verb, and this is what we call verb phrase earlier. Verb phrase. Now let us extend this kind of structure to other phrases. First noun phrase. अगर noun phrase पे ये apply करें. The meeting of the artist in the studio went well. The meeting of the artist in the studio went well. This is how we used to pass such a sentence. This is how we used to study kind of such a sentence को कैसे करते थे. And previously in the tree diagram we used to draw like this. Noun phrase here is divided into different branches. First of all, we use determinant for the, and then meeting is noun, prepositional phrases of the artist, and we have another preposition phrase that is in the studio, the meeting of the artist in the studio. We are just focusing on noun phrase here, right? So that's why we wrote this portion, the meeting of the artist in the studio. We didn't write went well because we are not focusing on word phrase. We have already discussed the word phrase about. Here, suppose we say now, the one night did not go well. This was the previous sentence. The meeting of the artist in the studio went well, and now we are going to substitute this whole noun phrase with a smaller noun phrase, right? We said the one at night did not go well, right? So we have changed the sentence kind of. We have added some more information. So here, what is being said? We have substituted one for the meeting of the artist in the studio. So हमने information जो one के साथ बाकी information remove कर दी, इसको use कर दिया. मैंने सब के साथ ये here you have the meeting of the artist in the studio. So here all we have removed all these phrases with the help of a one. हमने one के साथ इसको substitute कर दिया like we did in the verb phrase as well. So what happens here? Now let us use the idea of the specifier here in the noun phrase as well. As you can see, the specifies the particular meeting. Thus we can parse it as follows. पता है कि दा एक specify करती है चीज़ को already एक particular meeting को, जैसे ऊपर हमने all use किया था, right? जहाँ क्या होगा? Thus we can parse it as follows. And double apostrophe is noun phrase जैसे verb के साथ थे जब तो हमने verb phrase बोला. So here it is divided into specifier, that is the, and then we have further n bar, right? So n bar is the smaller phrase here, right? Which we choose the जो हमने one use किया था जैसे verb phrase में हमने use किया था two. So n bar is a kind of smaller phrase under this big phrase, right? So n bar is further being divided into two branches. That is, first is again n bar, right? And the second is pp, that is publishing phrase. And again here under n bar, and this n bar is again under this bigger n bar, right? So because we have more noun phrases in the sentence. And here we have simple preposition phrase, we have separated it, right? So again we have this n bar here, and under the n bar we have n, that is noun, and pp, that is of the artist. Here nowadays, since the linguist Ebony's work, Ebony, the determiner is called the head of what we used to be called noun phrase. So you can say that determiner is called the head of what we used to be called noun phrase. Determiner is kind of the head phrase of noun phrase because of so many reasons, because it kind of specifies the thing, right? Thus noun phrase and are called DPs, and this particular uh, renaming is called hypothesis. So noun phrase are called DPs because the, that is determiner, heads determiner is a kind of a head of what we used to be called noun phrases. And the reason for this change are the same as the other changes we are discussing. That is, it makes analysis more satisfactory. However, we'll not go into the reasons what part about linguists were thinking about this change. You can read them later once you understand syntax better. So we are not going into the details why NP is known as TP, determiner phrases, right? And why we put the as the head of noun phrase, because when we are going to understand syntax better, right? We will go for the higher studies, we kind of syntax, or we will go for specialization in this area. We will this aspect as well. The gist of the matter is that NPs can be called. तो इस मैटर जो हमने डिस्कस किया, तो इसमें हम इसको हम यूँ लिख सकते हैं NP is called as noun phrase, यानी this and मतलब first of is noun phrase. NP is specifier and n bar, right? As we wrote this verb phrase as well. So this, what is this? N bar contains noun or XP. XP does mean any phrase, right? Any other phrase. Because here we saw that this N bar contain other thing as well. That is, first thing is noun as well. Here look at this N bar. It had N and PP as well. It does mean it had a noun, and it has a noun and it has a W phrase as well. So we know that N phrase or N bar here in this way. That is a noun, and XP, that XP does mean N phrase. We can propose a similar model for adjective phrases, preposition phrases, etc. This is called the X bar theory, right? This process which you studied here about verb and noun, this is known as X bar theory, and it can be summed as, इसको हम इस तरह sum ऐड कर सकते हैं mathematically. X bar, that is X phrase, any phrase, X phrase से मुराद कोई भी हो सकती है, noun भी, verb phrase भी, etc. Is tantamount or it is equal to, or it contains specifier and X bar. X bar is any verb verb bar you can say, right? V bar you can say, sorry, or noun bar and N bar, etc. So what is X bar? X bar is noun. It can be noun. It can be verb, right? It can also contain any phrase, like we discussed in the case of this noun as well. So this is a kind of formula, and it can be applied for on verb phrase, adjective phrase, adverb phrase, prepositive phrase, etc. We can propose a similar model for adjective phrases, prepositive phrases, etc. This is called the X-bar theory, and it can be summed as. Sorry, we have already discussed this. Say X stands for noun, verb, adverb, preposition. I have already told you. So we now have a general format instead of PS rules for each of these nodes. Of course, we have. Let's discuss the last paragraph from this lecture here. We can sum up the X-bar theory saying that the lexical head of the projection is a zero projection. Lexical head of the projection is a zero projection. Does mean uh, if you have only uh, a projection of a lexical item in the phrase, that would be a zero projection, right? If under the heading of verb phrase, if you only have verb, right? So that if you only have verb or if you do not have any other material, right? If you only make the projection of that word, which, for example, in the verb phrase you make projection of verb, and in the noun phrase you only make projection of noun, so that would be known as a zero projection. Complements combined with x to form x part, right? So you will have to add some complements with that lexical item in a phrase, right? जैसे noun phrase में आपने add किया noun के साथ you added preposition phrase, right? And in the verb phrase you added specifier आप add करते हैं. तो फिर क्या करते हैं, फिर आप कोई adjuncts add करते हैं, projection बनाते हैं, right? तो ये x के साथ यानी x से मुराद कोई भी adverb हो सकता है, verb हो सकता है, noun हो सकता है, etc. तो when you add such complements, right? So they kind of make some projection. Complements combine with x to form x bar projection as do adjuncts. The topmost or maximal projection is formed with a specifier. Yes, जो topmost projection हो गया, maximal projection हो गई, वो specifier के साथ ही बनेगी, specifier के बगैर नहीं. When the specified position is not filled in by word, is considered as filled in by zero. Yes, specifier. If you do not use any specifier or you do not use a word for specifier, so it will be filled uh, in by zero, right? So in the next lecture we will extend this topic further, and we will apply some more rules here and get some introduce ourselves or familiarize ourselves with some other mathematical tools which come under the expert thing. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any question, do discuss with me.